Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a Media Watch from Santa Barbara. Myself, Bob Lovegren, and Rob Raffelli, who is a virtual out there in TV land. And we talk here about the media and what's going on in the media. And we were discussing just before the show started, there's a lot going on in the world today. Couple of wars and some a lot of things like that. And as we're first thing we're going to talk about basically is there's a election going on, or has been an election in the Netherlands, which has been very disruptive of the normal politics that had the normal party that was always in power, and that kind of thing and so on. So anyway, without further ado, let's let Rob start the show. We're talking about the Netherlands, the Dutch.
Well, we couldn't talk about the Dutch, but sure. What's been going on there's a party that's been gaining greater prominence. The mainstream media, in other words, not me, likes to refer to them as far right, but it's really more or less conservative with a little bit of libertarian flavor, and they're not thrilled that the Netherlands is being overwhelmed by a lot of Muslim immigration, and a lot of that Muslim immigration is, here's a newsflash, they don't assimilate well. So, multi-ethnic societies don't wind up being that peaceful. So, not everybody likes it. Anyway, the person in charge of that party his name is Geert Wilders, and Geert is, I've been aware of him for like 25 or 30 years. He's just been slogging away. Well, at this point, their most recent election had, his party took 34% of the seats in Parliament. Wow. And since they're very much multi-party, they are the biggest party, and it would make the most sense.
What was their percentage? What was their percentage before this? Do you have any idea?
It was probably somewhere in the low to mid 20s.
Okay.
So anyway, now they got 52 seats. They're about 34% of Parliament, and now they of course have to form a government. So that means that they have to negotiate, because this is one of those, so many countries do not have like what we call a two-party system.
Yeah.
They have lots of parties, and in order to form a government, in other words, a majority, they have to have a coalition of several parties.
Yeah.
All the other parties seem to be busy trying to avoid forming a coalition with the Wilders party, and really he should be prime minister, but because of the way they do this stuff, but who knows how it'll go or how long it'll be before they have a genuine government formed.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm amused by that. I was thinking about putting up. I think we just have a slide about it. I think it's picture number 320, Geert Wilders. I just wanted to.
Are you familiar at all with how the Dutch system works? In other words, could they just decide to have another election if you can't form a government, like they did in Israel?
I believe after a certain amount of time they do.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not sure how long
in Israel. That's what happens.
Anyway, this is sort of the opposite of what did our parents always tell us? Hey, play nice. Don't make me pull the car over and settle the problems in the back seat. Play nice. Well, this is a bunch of folks who don't seem to be able to find a way to play nice no matter what they do.
Yeah.
So, and of course, it's going around. So I'm not going to lord it over the Dutch and say that we're all that much better.
Well, it's a different system, as you said. It's not a two-party system there. Here's the slide, by the way, of the Netherlands.
Right. So I don't even remember what PVV stands for, but obviously the P is for party. At any rate, yes, he's now at 34%, and called far right. But as somebody who's been watching this guy and paying some attention to Geert Wilders for at least 25 years, I can tell you that he's just a conservative. He's just kind of a libertarian conservative, or as they like to say these days, Oh, fascist!
Well, the idea, of course, is
All right.
it's all gotten very popular now because of
Yeah.
the immigration problem and other things
Yeah.
too.
And what does far right mean now? I can't help but think that Democrat President John F. Kennedy would have been regarded as far right. I mean, he was anti-communist. He was pro-defense. He
Yeah.
cut taxes because actually the economy needed it. Anyway,
He lowered taxes.
yeah. So I'm looking at that and saying, so today he would be I don't know, possibly a Republican. The economist Thomas Sowell said if you believed in treating everybody the same, using the same set of rules for everybody, including blacks, he said in the 40s that would make you a radical. In the 60s that made you a liberal. He says today it makes you a racist. Your position is the same, but what people say about it has changed.
Yeah. Well, the idea, of course, is that, as you said, that's what the two-party system. And let's go back to the United States. We are really not a two-party system. It doesn't. If you ask people, as it say in the Constitution, there's two parties. Well, of course, there doesn't. It's not there, and it never has been. There's always been a separate party, and there will in the coming election, in fact, where it makes it close. In fact, as the Gore lost the presidency to Bush, was in 2000, I guess it was, and he lost that one because the guy, what was the guy with the Corvair? What was the guy's name that?
Nader.
Nader got 2% of the vote in Florida. And that's where the election was decided. So that, and now that today we have what they call a no-party system, that some senators from in the United States Senate and so on, and Machen or whatever his name is from West Virginia was one of the founders of it, and also a former senator from the state of Connecticut, who was a Democrat, who I think was nominated for some kind of Republican, spoke at the Republican convention. He's no longer a senator from Connecticut, of course, and this has been a long time ago, but he's one of the founders of this party. And of course, there's Robert Kennedy Jr. He is registered in several states in the primaries, and in California, for example. And that's going to be pretty tough because, as I've told people before, the Kennedy name is magic in the state of California.
Let's recall that Robert Kennedy Jr. wanted to be in the Democrat primary because he thought that he's saying, I'm a Democrat, I've always been a Democrat, I stand for Democrat values. He says he wanted to run against Joe Biden in the Democrat primary, and clearly the Democratic National Committee is scared to death that he would show very, very well. So they said, no, he's not going to be in there. So he doesn't get to be in the Democrat primary.
Okay, so let's move on, I guess. Let's run that one of Zelensky, the actor. I don't know if we won't show the whole thing, but we'll talk about it after it's over.
Yeah, this is the actor and comedian who is now the president of Ukraine.
Yeah, right. And in a wartime situation, I don't think he really knew he was going to get elected. It's like Donald Trump, that he got elected. It was a surprise to Zelensky as much as to anybody. But then, of course, the war came along, and now he's a national hero all over the world, basically.
So,
Can we see that video?
Video number 750.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to see the whole thing, but it's quite. It's kind of funny.
You cry uncle when you've had enough.
When you actually see what it is. You got it up, Mike?
That's a rather personal question.
It's 750. SFV 750. Ukraine president. See if you can recognize him in this movie, in this video.
Well, he's clean shaven here.
If we get it up there. Well, anyway, we'll move on to something else here temporarily.
Maybe come back to that if it comes easy, but we're not going to make this a make or break situation. Let's. Well, actually, I'd like if we.
here it
to,
is.
there we go. Get some music if we can. Yeah, that's the short guy in the middle. He's the president of Ukraine these days. Nice shoes.
When I first saw this, I couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah, I saw.
And that's Zelensky right there.
That's it. Kind of reminds you of Madonna. I'm not saying it.
There he
When
is.
she was slimmer.
That's enough. Mike, that's enough.
There we go. Anyway, I had to share that.
This was before he was president, of course, because as you know, he was a comedian and an actor. That's why he's so well known, and I guess that's it. Is in the Ukraine, I guess, right?
I expect it was.
Yeah.
Although, of course, he's come to the West many times. He's he's an itinerant fellow. He gets around.
What do you think about the Ukraine there,
It's a
Bob?
mixed bag.
Yeah.
I would not have said, gee, I hope that Russia invades them, because I think that was bad. On the other hand, there actually were some ethnic Russians in the region called the Donbass that they were having some problems. But what I think about the Ukraine is that it's been corrupt a long time, and there's a lot of multinational corporations that have their fingers in there, including
right?
a bunch
Yeah.
of including a bunch of pharmaceuticals. So
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
oh yeah, a bunch of biolabs, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, it's also a great place to launder money. You know, we had
Holy mackerel.
some senator was saying quietly to somebody who was bothering him about Ukraine. He says, "Look, we give them money, but most of it comes back because they spend it on American war supplies. So we send them $100 billion, but it comes back."
Yeah.
I thought, in other words, money laundering and producing business for your favorite campaign contributors. So,
Well, keep in
so
mind. Go ahead.
by the way, I can't convict anybody of that. I have no evidence to present, and I'm not saying I do. I'm just telling you that's what it looks like to me. Of course, I have a suspicious mind.
Yeah, but and they don't keep track of the money very well. In this current legislation, they want to give them 60 billion more dollars for war supplies and stuff. That's a lot of money, and there's no accounting it for where the money actually goes. And let's face it, I think we've had like the Hunter Biden was on the board of directors of some energy company in making $800,000 a year or something like that, an ungodly number. And he never, I don't think he ever went to a meeting even. I don't think he even went to Ukraine, but they gave money. Of course, that's and Joe got a little piece of that somewhere. He wasn't involved in it, but of course he's the one that got the guys fired. If they wanted any more money, that speech that he made, they either fire that guy or they can forget about getting any more money.
I'd like to run that video every time.
But now money just disappears like that in those kind of countries, and so they give them this stuff like. And I don't know, I could say it might be buying some American equipment. Now the money would come back, but of course it's the taxpayers that are paying for it in this country are paying for it.
Look, money disappears here too. We got.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that's right.
There was oodles and oodles of bank bailout money some years ago, and they're just saying we don't know where it went. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just don't know. And of course God knows what all we did in Afghanistan, but suddenly ran away, leaving $95 billion worth of military equipment, which is of course showing up all kinds of places already.
Yeah, in Afghanistan, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And war cost us a lot of money. And well, of course, we didn't. Well, we had soldiers over there, I guess, too, in that. But still, there's no auditing. In fact, we used to give money to Cuba before when Batista was the president there, and they were sending guys down there to try to figure out where all the money was going. Unfortunately, Castro came along, and then they were out. There was no accounting anymore. Batista took off. They went and go to Spain. That's what they usually go. In Latin American countries, when they go in exile, they go to Spain and take the money with them. A lot of that money goes with them. How about
Yeah,
Camilla?
it all depends on where you're from. Now, if you're from a French-speaking place like Haiti, then like Baby Doc went into exile
Right.
in France. Or if you're, a good Muslim like Idi Amin of Uganda, then when he went into exile,
Saudi Arabia.
became, he was a guest of the House of Saud in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. He's gone now, though. I think he is. I don't know. Is he dead? I looked that up in a while. Well, I can remember what I found out.
I don't know, but I'd be shocked
Okay.
if he weren't. He'd be awfully old.
So where do you want to go next?
Oh, that's a great question. How about let's tread the line of foreign policy and media, and let's show picture 401 because this is about the Washington Post and how the Washington Post seems to be a huge friend of war.
Which one is that?
It's picture number 401. It's I just wanted to do a little commenting on the Washington Post. Now, they seem to be dreadfully eager to get us to bomb Iran.
Oh yeah, here it is. Right, 401.
Yeah, I just.
I remember what that said. You got 401. Yeah, it's up on the screen now.
Yeah, there we go. So
Find somebody who loves you as much as Washington Post loves. Put it back up, please.
Yeah, leave it on for a bit.
Loves demanding we bomb Iran, drone strikes and so on and so forth.
They're saying drone strikes are bad. No drone strikes would be worse. They're saying a wider war, to avoid a wider war, Iran must be deterred. Anyway, I'm looking at well, it's off the screen now, but I'll tell you what my commentary on it, which I put on the side of it, is just for an experiment, just to think about it. Can you think of any policy that the Pentagon and the intelligence community want that the Washington Post disapproves of? Yeah, not an experiment, thought experiment. Does the WAPO ever disagree with the military-industrial complex or the intelligence community?
Yeah. What's the Washington Post really have to do with it, though? I mean, they're supportive of this all.
Well, it's one of my Media Watch themes is various items in the media, like the Washington Post, big media, big influence, especially in Washington. What's their policy? Because you may find out often that the policy of the newspapers may turn out to be the policy of your country if you're not careful.
Yeah. They actually, let's face it, the Washington Post is a Washington D.C. newspaper, and it's got a readership, I suppose, that likes to hear that kind of stuff, and that they follow. Although a lot of times you find out, like the New York Times, everybody talks about the fact that it's a very liberal newspaper and so on, but I read it, and there's articles that are very, across the board, are very informative, essentially. Stuff that you would never really hear about, actually. Like these elections and stuff like that. I can't remember. There's another one. I think in Peru, not Peru, was Nicaragua, I guess it was, and so on, and Guatemala down there. That's another thing. The elections are happening. As I said earlier in the show here, there's a lot of elections going on all the time. Let's get and tell something I've been thinking about quite a bit myself. There's really only two forms of government. It's the dictatorships. That are, you can look at all like Putin and places, and that's alive and well throughout the world. And in fact, some of these democratic democracies, that's the other form of government, which was the government of the people, for the people. What is it that Abraham Lincoln said? For the people, about the people, who cares about the people? And that's the Gettysburg Address. People. And that's, of course, a lot more complex because the dictatorships, as I always said about dictatorships, so one of their elements of the policy is you get rid of your critics, even if they're related. Like the little fat kid from North Korea, he got his brother, he nailed him in Thailand. And Putin now with this guy they can't even get the body back. They give the people, his wife and mother, they won't even give the government won't even give the body back.
Well, you know why, don't you?
Well, I don't know. I
body.
think because they'll do some autopsy and they'll find out that he was murdered.
Yeah, in fact, it would probably be, you could take a glance at the body and say, well, you tortured him too, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's when they poisoned him. So out of the country, in fact, even. But assassination is part of the political process in these dictatorships. Hitler had 20, I think it was just about 20 attempts on his life, which started way before he was even the Fuhrer. It's in the 20s. People were trying to kill him. Of course, they're unsuccessful the whole time, mainly because he knew that it was happening. He was never in his itinerary, his schedule was what he made up on in the smoke. So he really didn't know where he was going to be at any given time. They failed, and of course the July whatever was assassination attempt in the bunker there in France. That was just one attempt, and that failed because they put the bomb in the wrong place, and they had another bomb on a plane. But they didn't realize that it wasn't going to go off when the plane got to be 10,000 feet or so on. And Hitler was actually sitting on the bomb. It was right under his seat. It would have been the end of him for sure. And again, he a lot of places, a lot of bombs went off on different places, and he wasn't there. And that's how the SS started. They were the guard of Hitler. And of course, it became something military, the Waffen-SS. And other branches through Himmler. That's how that's all started, the SS business and so on. Anyway, that's the form of government that happens and is still alive. A lot of people that were elected are continuing to be elected in Poland, I believe it is, and Belarus, or all over the world. And all these elections, like for Cuba, they have elections, but they're really not elections at all. Anyway, that's my take on elections, basically, and that's what democracy really is. It has all to do with elections. Every election they talk about. Every election they talk about. This is the end of democracy. You hear that all the time now and so on. Well, every election is a test of democracy. Every one of them, not only in this country but everywhere else too. And so far we've done pretty well with it. Nobody gets assassinated. There was. The latest one was, of course, Kennedy. Prior to that, it was Lincoln, Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley. But that was it. And that was, by the way, all those assassinations took place between 1865 and a little after about 1900, something like that. That was McKinley was assassinated. He had just been elected to a second term, and Teddy Roosevelt became president. But we don't have that much. Go ahead.
We had plenty of attempts. There was at least one attempt on Andy Jackson's life, and
Reagan too.
That's right. We had Squeaky Fromm took a shot at him, and we also obviously there was John Hinckley who put a bullet in him.
Yeah. And Ford too, but that wasn't successful.
Oh wait, maybe Squeaky would try for Ford. Then there was Puerto Rican terrorists who tried to take out FDR.
Right. Yeah. Truman.
Or was it Truman? Yeah, Battle of Blair House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it's happened over in our system and so on. But it's not like it's a given. What is it? The Chinese. When they became the emperor of China, he just killed off all his relatives. Once he became that was part of the process. If you were related to the emperor, and because that's what when they chose, there was no election, of course, but that was part of the process, and it still is. It just really is. That they disappear, that disappeared as they call it. Okay, so let's move on here.
What I wanted to do actually was. Let's show some of the people who might not be in the White House one day. I have a few videos. I wanted to show video number 101, which is Donald J. Trump at CPAC, and I wanted to do Kamala Harris. She's 201, and then I want to go to 203, where Klobuchar tells us about how sharp and completely with it.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You think context of all in which you lived and what came before you.
There you go. She's a heartbeat away from the presidency. So that was 201. Let's do 101, just as Trump tells us about how he decided to run.
I actually started quite a while ago in CPAC, came here, probably made my first real political speech, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president, right?
Donald Trump spoke at CPAC in Orlando, got 31 million views, more than the Grammys and the Academy Awards combined.
Yeah. Anyway, what the hell? Let's run for president.
When did he say this now? This is after he got the...
That was sometime around 2015, 2016, when he was getting ready to go.
Okay, this is happened before he took office the first time, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hit my video number 203, Klobuchar, because Amy Klobuchar is assuring us that Biden is completely up to the task. And so who are you going to believe?
I was on Air Force One with the president going from Minnesota to Wisconsin going from Washington, D.C. to Wisconsin for an infrastructure project. And I was with the president for over an hour and talked about so many things, domestic, international. He was focused. His recall was good. It was the same experience that my colleagues had who met with him for hours, Democrats and Republicans, about the Mideast only a few weeks ago.
Okay, I'm on Jeopardy, and here's what I say. I'll take things that never happened for 400, Alex. I don't think that conversation ever occurred. Right?
Yeah. Well, of course, they were defending him.
He covered many topics. He covered many topics, and he was sharp.
Let me, we've talked before the show and so on. Give it back to the viewers here. What do you think is going to happen to Joe Biden at the convention? Do you think he will be the nominee? I know that you think that he's not going to make it.
Yeah, that's a no. I don't. But I've been badly shocked before. No, I don't think that he'll be the nominee. I think that he'll have an episode. You won't remember something, or he'll seem confused, or he'll fall down, or something. I'm sure it's already been scripted, but something will, and they'll say, great warrior, you served with distinction. We're going to have someone else carry the ball from here, and I think that the convention will acclaim whoever the hell they've already picked. I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to guess not Kamala Harris.
Yeah, there's a good question. Who is it going to be, basically? I don't think it'll be Kamala Harris, that's for sure. But could be a lot of, like Kennedy, for example. He might, because he's a Democrat.
They don't want him.
Though it may be only in the initial, what you call him and so on. But I don't think he's like I said, Kennedy's name is magic, basically, in this country. Because remember what happened? Joe Sr. had 4 sons, and 3 of them were dead, and before he died. 2 of them were assassinated, and of course the original Joe Jr., maybe people don't know this, during World War II, he was in the Air Force, and he lost his life when a plane that he was in blew up, and they never found any even pieces of the guy. It's an interesting story, actually. It was an experiment. They loaded up a B-17 with dynamite and then they flew it to a German, to a target somewhere in Europe. And the idea was that then they would fly that plane into that target and they would bail out or something like that to get out of the thing. Well, they experimented with it, and unfortunately one experiment went bad, and their plane blew up before they ever got to Europe, and he was gone. And he said, that Joe Jr. said, that his dad wanted him to be, he was going to make him the president of the United States. Of course, when he died, of course, John Kennedy was then the old man said, okay, you're going to be the president of the United States. Anyway, I think that the Kennedy name, especially here in California, keep in mind, Robert Kennedy was killed at the Roosevelt Hotel. I think it was the Roosevelt in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So, of again, who's going to be the nominee? You know, who would take over? I mean, there's probably.
I figure they'll push Gavin Newsom, but
yeah, that's right, Gavin Newsom, right?
Just because he's photogenic and because he's connected with the Gettys, I mean, I can't think of anything. What did he do that was so great in California besides, crank up spending when money came in and then not crank it down again when it stopped flowing in? I mean, I don't know what is supposed to be good about Gavin Newsom except he's photogenic.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously he beat him on that recall. And he came in when he ran for president, ran for governor again, and the vote was a little less. That I think it wasn't that a little less. It was less that when he ran for, when he was being not impeached, but recall election, and so a little less popularity. And I don't know, things happen here in California that they were faced with the same things. The immigrants and that kind of thing. It's higher crime rates, like in New York City. I guess that is just a total disaster in New York City. And they're giving them money. They figured out they're giving them free debit cards. And they got
thousands of dollars on them.
$12,000 a year. Each of them get $12,000 a year. They're spending $50 million. That's the city of New York, not the government, not the federal government that's sponsoring them and so on. And now, they've taken back a lot of that stuff because they just don't have the money anymore.
Hey, Bob, if you want a free hotel in New York, what you do is you go across the Mexican border, then you cross illegally, and you tell them that give them a Hispanic name and get sent to New York and get a spending card in a hotel. That's what you do.
What hotel is this? I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is, if you pretend to be an illegal alien,
yeah,
then at least you'll get a ride to New York City, and they'll put you up in a hotel, and you'll get a credit card or debit card.
Nice hotel. You get as I say, you get free resident, in a hotel. A lot of meals. You get free medical care, free condoms, free drugs, the whole thing.
Sure, and you probably. Yeah, you committed
and that's
some
happening
crime.
in Chicago and New York and Los Angeles, and I think probably in Santa Barbara too.
Committed a few crimes. The Soros-backed prosecutor doesn't charge you. It must be great. Beats working.
Yeah, yeah. That. Why get a job? I mean, and I think they're passing out applications for voter registration too. One of your slides, in fact, shows that. Where is that? I forgot where it was.
I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to.
I saw one of the slides. I saw one of your slides here. They were climbing over the wall, and the first thing they met is this little kiosk where a guy was passing out applications for voters.
Yeah, that was for 2 weeks ago for a show we didn't have.
Yeah.
So that's not in this list. Thinking about how people of the liberal persuasion want to make sure that Trump isn't on the ballot, I'd like to run the video number 710 that has Colbert in it, because Colbert is showing us that he's not a comedian anymore, and that
which one is that?
It's video number 710. It's Colbert.
I know how numb we've become, but it's not normal. No other candidate for the presidency has ever had to pause his campaign to defend himself in multiple courts. And I would like to point out that in all 7 of his cases, no one doubts that he did these things. We're just sitting around patiently waiting to find out if the wheels of justice will grind fast enough for there to be any consequences. And the media is covering it like it's any other political story, like it's all horse race.
He sounds kind of desperate.
I got
what about the part where the people want him? I mean, I see more American blacks who are enthusiastic about Trump than they used to be. I've seen more Hispanics. Of course, I'm as enthusiastic as you can get. You may remember the first time around, I said, oh, well, it beats Hillary. But I've warmed to him since.
That Colbert, he's a comedian, supposedly, a late night show.
That's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say, right? And very political, though. I guess that's the whole idea. Very liberal. And anti-Trump, for sure.
It's a weird thing. We've watched this unfold I think that Colbert probably is a skilled comedian, and I know that he's very sharp and he's interested in all sorts of things that I think are interesting. But I think that when he decided that he had to be completely full-throatedly on one political side rather than just, having some fun, he stopped being fun.
Yeah.
I get tired of being lectured about politics by people I agree with. Never mind him.
Yeah, when Carson died or left the show, and then Jay Leno took over, and what's the other guy's name that was on CBS? I can't remember. The comedian there that had the late night show.
Letterman.
Yeah, right. He retired.
Letterman.
So, and I haven't watched late night now for a long time. About 25 years that I haven't gave up doing because they just weren't as good at it, and they weren't political. I remember Jay Leno said when Obama got elected to the presidency, well, they couldn't really tell any jokes about the president now because he was a black guy, and so it's kind of laid off Obama. In fact, I think he appeared not as president though. He appeared on the show. Maybe he was the president. I can't remember on Jay Leno's show.
There's something important about comedy and power. And remember the court jesters? The court jester could, he was the fool in the king's court, but he could say things because it was a joke. He could say things that the king needed to hear that other people couldn't say.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important role, especially if here's a guy who can say, "Well, Your Majesty, of course, you're a little on the overbearing side," and you do a little wink and a nod, and His Majesty gets the picture without having to without any heads having a roll.
Yeah.
So I think that was a valuable function.
Yeah, the court jester was a tough job in those situations. Now, of course, when you get a good show like Colbert, he's there forever because he's I gather because he's been around a long time, I guess. But he, it's like their legacy. They just don't want to. They want to be there. Want to keep making money and getting paid for stuff, and this is what they can do because they do have a following. The shows do have a following. Not much of a following these days, as it turns out, but enough to sell pillows at least. The guy that said on his, you hear him, see him all the time. He's kind of a comedian. He's kind of a comedian himself.
So that reminds me, I haven't been watching Gutfeld either. Are you watching Gutfeld?
Yeah. Anyway,
Bob, I'm asking you, Bob.
Sorry.
Are you watching Gutfeld these days?
Who?
Gutfeld?
Oh, Gutfeld, yeah. I do watch it for a time. The only guy I really like is Titus, the big black guy that was the wrestler. And so
he
is pretty funny.
Is fun.
He is really funny. Anyway, but he watches a little, and he does, and the Gutfeld too. But it's canned laughter. I think it's in some. I guess he does have an audience out there too, a live audience that he performs before, but that's there at the show because they do offer on the show in advertising. They do offer free tickets to the show if you're in New York.
Well, if I'm in New York,
again, it's all that this whole thing about the media. That's the thing that's really been changing. Is this over time is the ability of the people like this to have an audience. Now with what do you call them? Podcasts, podcasts, and so on. You can have your own show, and it's a big business. Some people that get a YouTube channel or something like that and have millions of viewers. In fact, Gutfeld has people on that do have their own porch shows.
Podcast. Yeah.
Podcast. I'm sorry, podcast.
How about Joe Rogan? I've warmed somewhat to Joe Rogan, but I don't have the time to spend on him. You familiar with Joe Rogan? His show is called The Joe Rogan Experience, and he has all sorts of interesting people on. I mean, some of them I think are whack jobs. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Some of them are interesting people I would not have thought of, and he specializes in what I would call the long form interview. If it takes 2 to 3 hours to find out what somebody has to say, he'll have the person there for 2 or 3 hours. He asks the hard questions, he asks the friendly questions, and he lets the respondent run. He's not. You may remember Bill O'Reilly tended to cut people off, and I was thinking, wait a second, I don't care if you don't like this guy. I don't like him, but I want to know what he has to say. But when you go with the Joe Rogan Experience, you're going to have enough time to find out what people have to tell you. So you'll see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on that. You see all sorts of interesting people, and it's pretty good for somebody who used to be. He was a professional wrestler, I think, or maybe no, mixed martial arts. It was that was probably where he was. Anyway, it turned out he had the gift, and he's been doing this podcast thing for several years now.
Yeah.
And God knows how wealthy he must be, because he had a $200 million contract with Spotify.
Wow.
So that's comparable to Rush.
Yeah.
And he probably has an audience comparable to Rush. Rush had a minimum of 20 million listeners.
What's the guy's name again? I can't remember. The guy.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, right, Rogan. Yeah, he's very he has a real following, for sure, and he's well known. He goes on other people's shows. He's interviewed by people at Fox News and places like that. I don't know if he's in the CNN and all that, but I know I've seen him at Fox News too. And that's the idea. Anybody, you talk about free speech. It's free. It's alive and well in this country, that's for sure. Because you can be like we're doing a show. We're doing a show here. Who knows? All these two guys are talking about different things. Well, it could if we hit a live wire or hit a nerve someplace out, and all of a sudden that becomes part of the national scene. All of a sudden we could have 1 million viewers, and that we haven't done it yet. And I hope we never do, really. But I guess. But anyway, everybody has. I guess I'll give it a little pitch for public access. Everybody has a right, can have their own podcast. This is essentially what this is. Essentially, except we're in a studio with 3 cameras, and a lot of high tech stuff we can produce. We don't get paid for it, of course, but we don't have advertising for it because I don't think we really get much of a viewership. But anyway, bottom line is anybody can do it these days. You can do something, and all of a sudden it's all over the internet. I was reading a story today, in fact, about a woman that was a columnist, some kind of media columnist in the LA Times, and it went live with her obituary that she had just died. Well, she hadn't died. She found out about this and so on, but it was all over the internet. All kinds of different things. People were calling up to see if it was true or not, and of course it wasn't. It wasn't. That kind of stuff can happen. I'm not sure that that's a good thing. To be quite honestly, anybody can say whatever they want on the internet, and everybody's in the cloud, and it stays in the cloud forever. It's always going to be there. Things that you did when you were 16, 17 years old, which of course, you can do that. Free speech is... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, not necessarily. So there's a Washington Post, I think she's a Washington Post reporter. I forget where all she turns up, but her name is Taylor Lorenz, and she had a Twitter presence. Anyway, she was the person who outed Raya something, the woman who is Libs of TikTok. And so Libs of TikTok was just finding bizarre things that liberals like to post to tell you all about their gender identity and everything else and say the most bizarre stuff. And she would just, Libs of TikTok would just repost it. Well, so here's Taylor Lorenz. She outed her. She found out where she lived and what her real name was, and she put it out there. Yeah, and I always look at that stuff and say, why? You mean you're sort of trying to farm out getting her hurt instead of going over there and hurting her yourself? Just tell everybody where she is, and well, she got hurt. Yeah. And I said that she was the devil. But here's where I'm getting at is that Taylor Lorenz is the daughter of somebody who's very big on the board of the Internet Archive.
Oh yeah, right.
Also known as the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of her stuff that was more embarrassing did go away and is not findable on the Wayback Machine. So, the other thing is, sometimes things you get are removed from the Wayback Machine because someone objects and says, hey, I have a copyright to that and you're presenting my stuff without them going through me.
Yeah,
But anyway,
you're talking now about the president of Harvard University, right?
No, but feel free.
That was the one that happened when she got canned because of her testimony about the Senate committee, and she ended up getting fired. Mainly, one of the reasons was she had lifted some when she wrote these. She was a professor and still is a professor at Harvard, and she did. But there was a guy, that went. What do they call it? Virtual,
Plagiarism.
basically. Yeah, all over the world. And it turned out the guy who was complaining, he was a money manager there in New York, big money, and he's going to pull all this stuff out of any nowhere things to going endowments and stuff going to Harvard University, and. So they went after him, and it turned out that his wife had plagiarized. She was a professor at Harvard also, and she had plagiarized some papers and that kind of stuff. And it goes round and round. But that wasn't the one you were talking about.
No, that's fine. By the way, there's a black economist, a woman she was the producer of some of the work that the president of Harvard had plagiarized. So I saw her on TV a few times complaining. Yeah, I don't like that plagiarism. Oh yeah, and that was my work she took. That was fun.
I would like to tell you that Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. That was plagiarized. There was no new ideas that people didn't know, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That was a common phrase, not necessarily just in those exact words. That had been going around for 100 years. John, what was his name?
John Locke.
Yeah, had written about it in Britain. Mm-hmm. A lot of these ideas came from the British system, basically. The House of Lords and the Parliament and all that sort of thing. They had to cut off a few heads. The king of Britain, and in the 1600s, they executed him, and but then the dynasty came back, and there was a king again, but he was never as powerful as that king had been in the early 1600s. It wasn't like the Queen Elizabeth and things like that, the original Queen Elizabeth. Anyway,
I don't know that Thomas Jefferson ever claimed that he came up with all the ideas. I think they were codifying and trying to state clearly what it is that they were about. And so much of our legal system is essentially and intentionally and explicitly English common law.
Right.
Because the Brits had worked out common law in terms of the way you and I would respect rights, and over the centuries, and it was actually pretty good. They liked it. Mm-hmm. And of course, lots of the stuff about the sovereign being responsible to the rest of the country comes from Magna Carta.
Right, and there's the 1200s right there, but that's a development in that. Anyway, bottom line is that today, boy, it's all out there. You can't do anything basically without somebody knowing about it. It comes back to haunt you, like the laptop computer that Hunter Liggett forgot about. He'd left at some guy's repair shop, and it was oh my God, it was all kinds of stuff. And of course, once that got out, I don't know. I guess you can see it yourself on the internet these days. I haven't never tried to do it, but all the stuff he was naked and doing drugs and with prostitutes on this laptop that was around. And you got to be real careful what you tell people these days, especially when it's on the internet.
It's a little on the weird side. I look at that. First of all, I haven't done 2% of what Hunter Biden has done. And secondly, if I did, I don't think I'd be putting it on my laptop or recording it all. Oh, maybe I should have some nice videos of me doing illegal things and immoral things. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Right. Well, that's
You
what I'm
know,
saying. That's
a
what I'm
lot-
saying. It
A
probably,
lot could go wrong.
yeah.
Go ahead.
If it was on his laptop, it probably is in the cloud someplace. You haven't heard the last of it for sure. In a way, I feel sorry for Joe Biden, because he lost his wife and his daughter in that car accident, and he had just been elected as senator from Delaware, and then his son Beau died of cancer. I think it was a cancer anyway. And in fact, then Joe Biden became some kind of a cancer advocate, cancer research advocate, and so on. And this is after he had left the Senate and become before he became the vice president. And then, of course, he's left with Hunter Biden. I mean, which is I don't know if it's going to bring him down or not, but that certainly isn't what he had in mind, and so on. But anyway, the bottom line is that. Well, we'll see what happens. That's the thing about this whole situation. Like I've said before, and I'll say it again, that this is going to be a very interesting election year. Whether Donald Trump and Joe Biden and maybe some others, but Joe Biden, well, Donald Trump may be in jail, which is all a concept there. But is he still the president if he's even in jail? Has that been tested in the Constitution at all? You're actually jail time. And I'm predicting, in fact, that if in fact Donald Trump is elected president, this is before, I don't think he's going to be judged. He's indicted now, but this is trials going on, and a lot of appeals that also going on. It may not happen until after the election is over. So now we got a president that is found guilty in these other cases, that alone is a appeal, and maybe Biden himself won't be just. I'm not sure it'd be impeachment is so important. Is he may be convicted of a crime, selling his influence and getting money for it. That's a crime, and you could go to jail for that. For politicians, some politicians have in fact gone to jail just because of that. They're selling their influence, taking a kickback and things like that, and it's cost them their career. That money, that guy was a congressman from Louisiana, black guy, and he happened to be black, and they found some money in his freezer, in his refrigerator, about $100,000 in his refrigerator, and he lost that office. So anyway, only got 5 minutes left. What else you got? Got any other highlights here?
Oh, maybe.
Pick something out
Actually, let's
for a
do
close.
the last two videos. One of them is about Assange. Actually, maybe I should just tell you about it. We all know that Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, is in prison in the UK, and he's in prison because the US wants to extradite him for WikiLeaks.
Assange,
and the thing is, he's actually not charged with a crime in the UK, and he's been in Belmarsh prison for a few years now, and before that he was holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy. This guy has been punished severely without ever having been tried for anything, and I was actually sorely disappointed in Donald Trump when he did not already pardon Julian Assange. I would have pulled that one off for sure. But anyway, now there are actually some artists who are saying it's important that Julian Assange get out, and they're threatening. They've gotten a vault with art, their own art, but valuable art that they're saying, if he isn't released, we're going to burn this art. And actually, one of these people who contributed art, isn't art that he did. He has like a Picasso, and he says, what does the world need? Does the world need Julian Assange out and free and talking, or does it need another Picasso? Anyway, I think of this. We're approaching peak absurdity and novelty.
Now, was he convicted of any crime in Britain?
No, he's not.
I think they were after him in Sweden. That's what it was. They had
and that's been rescinded because that was some
Oh,
trumped
really?
up
That's right.
crap.
Yeah, they have.
That was some trumped up crap about sex.
They want
And,
them.
yeah,
They want them. They want them in the United States. If they could extradite them, that's what they would
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
It's just like they want what's his name? Who's the fellow who wound up in Russia? Snowden. They want
Yeah,
Edward
right.
Snowden. I was so amused to hear people like John Kerry saying, that little coward, he should come back here and stand trial. I thought, what? He embarrassed you guys. You guys want him in jail forever or dead, so he's a coward for not coming back.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
what do you have at risk? I mean, I would say, look, if he and you got into a room with each carrying a poisoned knife, then at least, I would say you have something at risk too. But you don't get to sit there in the pinnacle of power and call somebody you want to abuse a coward.
So
How
what
sick.
is the British? How are they? What's their legal reference here for right to hold this guy? If the
do
Swedes don't want to get him, they want to extradite him to the United States, of course.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I don't like him. I think we should go out with some comedy. So
Yeah,
I'd love to do the one that's called Restaurant Fire. It's the last of the videos. It's number 805.
Okay,
And
why don't we see that? That's 805. There
There
it
it
is.
is. Look at
Oh
that.
yeah, there it is.
What presentation?
There it is. Shut the water off.
Yeah. Anyway, it was all very dramatic.
What were they trying to prove? What were they trying to prove there?
Oh, I'm sure it's some kind of one of these desserts that's soaked in whiskey, and they light it up because it makes the presentation very dramatic. Anyway, it was dramatic enough that the sprinkler came on.
Playing with fire. Okay, we only got a minute left, so
All right, talk your little heart out.
yeah. Assange is that interesting character. And what's the other guy? He still lives in Russia, doesn't he? In Moscow?
Yeah, Edward Snowden.
Yeah, Snowden.
Edward
yeah.
Snowden, actually, he did a remote video with
Yeah.
John Oliver, and
Yeah.
it was about having a strong password. And he actually gave us some very good ideas for strong passwords.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be hard to remember. They should be very, very long and easy to remember.
Anyway,
He said, here's a password I use. He says, Margaret Thatcher is 100% dead sexy.
okay, we only got 30 seconds. Have to close it out here. For those of you that are watching, we're going to continue to do the same thing we've been doing. It's interesting stuff going on, not just so much as a media watch, but just as things in general. I hope we survive it all, especially a $37 trillion. And by the way, thank God there's a Fox News. Thank you very much.